We're about to have our second speaker, Jarrod, jump up and share with us, but I wanted to give you guys a bit of an introduction to him. So Jarrod is the Youth and Faith Advisor at World Vision Australia, but as well as that, he's a National Ambassador for Welcome to Australia, and he runs a thing called the First Home Project, which you may have heard and he'll share about no doubt today. You may also have seen him looking fairly dashing in the papers a couple of days ago, but he'll share a bit about that as well. Jarrod is someone actually who in this modern age I first found out about and interacted with on Twitter, right? Twitter, it brings people together and then breaks them apart as they only look at their phones. But Jarrod I first came across through Twitter, right? I was watching Q&A and I kept getting frustrated that his tweets got up and mine never did. So I thought I'd start following him, right? See what the magic is. And as I started following him, I started to get really challenged by some of the things he was saying. And I'd keep reading them, and I just felt my heart getting harder, going, "No, that's too far, mate. No, that's too much, man. That's challenging. I can't do that. No." As I was just reading his Twitter accounts, I think Jarrod is, through the magic of social media, one of the people who has challenged me to think more seriously about the way that I view the words of Jesus in the gospel and to read with fresh eyes what it means when Jesus tells us parables like the Good Samaritan. When in 1 John we hear, if you don't have love for those in need, is the love of God in you? And it's challenged me so much. I'm so excited to be hearing him speak for me for the first time tonight. And I hope you guys are excited as well. So, Jarrod, if you can jump up, that would be great.
Just make it up there, at least from you. One liner from you.
Ask me where I'm from. Let me explain. We've got a couple of slides here. Thanks. Currently, we've got the timer going in the opposite direction. Does that mean I'm negative time? Or I'm winning points here? Here we go. Fantastic. This is some of... I live with 17 of the most amazing, phenomenal people that the best kept secret about what we're doing is how much fun we're having. And in this photo is my gorgeous wife. In fact, if we go to the next slide... here's my gorgeous wife, and as someone somewhat crudely put it to Teresa, what's going on here, i.e. where are you from? But no one ever asks where I'm from. See, they ask Teresa because Teresa's mum is from Malaysia, her grandparents are from mainland China, but no one asks me, despite the fact that I'm a first-generation Australian on one side of my family. No one ever asks my full name. You can see here my gorgeous boy. This is Tyson. He's 6'4". Some of you are going, he's 6'4". How old is he? He's 17, and some of you are going, are you 17? That's a testimony for another night, for another time. Tyson, where First Home Project grew out of is for 8 years, we felt the Holy Spirit ask us to move to one of the rougher sides of town. In fact, I think my mate John Owen may be here, and maybe not, but John Owen was intending to be here, maybe a little similar to a Mount Druitt or something like that, where John is choosing to live. And we started a community garden, and we just started opening up our home to people who are homeless. What we were seeking to do is be the church together, not just on Sunday, but day to day. And we started to realise that taking in one person, while the friendship network we were able to provide was no doubt healing, in terms of in Western Australia, where we have an economic boom that's bigger than China's because of all the mining that goes on in WA, there is only 2% vacancy in the rental market, which means that if you've just come out of detention or finally out of a refugee camp and you arrive, and English is your third or fourth or fifth language, because let's face it, like, people are brilliant everywhere else in Australia, we're a bit lazy when it comes to languages, and you've got complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you've got family back home, and you're dealing with the guilt of those who are back home that you wish could be with you here, and you're dealing with the hardness of just being in a new environment, and you don't have any work because you don't have a place to stay, so you apply for a job and they ask you, so what's your place of residence, and you're not able to give an answer. In Western Australia, we have a huge issue of secondary homelessness. So like our first family that came to live with us from West Africa, the father is sleeping on a couch with 3 other families in that household. The mother is sleeping on a roll-out mattress in another different house to that, and their kids who are getting in trouble at school and the parents can't hold down full-time work are living with extended family. And this is happening all the time in Western Australia. So out of that birthed First Home Project. But I was talking about Tyson. When we were living in Lockridge, we had an Aboriginal elder from up north that was living with us, and Tyson was playing with the local kids. There's lots of Noongar kids in our neighbourhood, and Tyson runs in with 3 other kids whose skin are as dark as Tyson's is, and she knows the other kids, and she says to Tyson, "Where are you from?" And Tyson goes, "Perth." And she goes, "Nah, what country?" And he goes, "Australia?" And there's this odd moment where they look at each other going like, what's going on? Tyson and Teresa get asked all the time, "Where are you from?" And I want to start, before I actually give 2 minutes, to a dear friend, Rabbi Zalman Castell, who's kind enough to join me tonight, which I'm so excited about. And I want to let you share with one another your full names. My full name is Jarrod Saul McKenna. Saul is my mum's maiden name. My mum's side of the family are Russian Jews. Thanks for asking. McKenna, my dad was born in Coleraine outside of Belfast. Because of the troubles, because of the discrimination, because they were Catholic, the family migrated. But no one ever asked me. But there is this assumption when we start these conversations, and even if I can confess, as somebody who loves Jesus so much it makes evangelicals blush, even us, we can be really bad at not letting our baptismal identities name us, but instead be named by what's on our passport, or what class or school or what other background we've come from. And I want to just insert a little bit of humility as we start and say, unless your people have been here for 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 years, you got a story and you're from somewhere. White is a good way of naming power relations, i.e., I'm white in the sense that I walk into the supermarket and unlike my mate Des, I don't have a security guard that traces me around. Des is a pastor in the Uniting Church, and what he does when he realises that a security guard's following around because he's Aboriginal, he'll hide around the corner, and then as he comes around, he's like, "Boo! Aboriginal! Wah!" Des is hilarious. And he shares the gospel out of doing that. He's fantastic. I want to give you 1 minute with the person you're next to. What's your name? Where's it from? Go for it. Cool.
I suppose when you introduce your own it's just in my experience with you, if you hold the line,
Sure.
you'll get it back.
20 more seconds. Thanks. Just for 2 minutes, and I'm very thankful for Kirk's Place hospitality for a sacramental, charismatic Anabaptist like me, let alone my good friend Reb Zalman Castell. But thanks for opening up and your hospitality and how that speaks of Christ's welcome of us. And I would like to give you, my friend, just a couple of minutes to share with us. Thanks for being here. Do you want to join? Everybody, Rabbi Zalman Castell.
Thank you. I am stranger, much stranger than a lot of other people here tonight. I not only am I a Hasidic Jew, I also live on the North Shore, very close to Pimble. And there's some nice people up there, my kids, for example. But yeah, I probably, if not for the influences of people like Jarrod, Christians, Muslims I've met, I probably would like Greg, be living my happy life on the North Shore and be completely indifferent to what's happening about those people with the funny names, funny skins, or throw their children off overboard. We believe that. It's incredible. I just want to read something short from the book of Esther. This is actually a handwritten scroll that we read last week when we celebrated Purim. ויאמר המן למלך אחשוורוש ישנו עם אחד מפוזר ומפרד בין עמים בכל מדינות מלכותך ושהם שינוס מכל עם ותעשה המלך אינם עושים. And Haman said to the king Ahasuerus, there is one people who are spread out between all the other nations in all the states of your kingdom. Their practices are different from all the other nations. They don't practice as the king practices. It's not worth it for the king, for our kingdom, for our government, to allow them to exist. They should be annihilated. This is our story, and it's a story that continues to play a part in our lives. And it's a privilege to be here tonight, to be part of the prayer, part of the growing awareness. And when I'm praying, I'm thinking of people in Greg's jobs. We're still sitting there now thinking they're doing the right thing. They're not so sure. They go home and they reassure themselves that they're doing good, like so many of us. And I guess I'll finish from Isaiah when he talks about worship, and he talks about people who fast and then ask God, why didn't you notice how we fasted? And God says, well, share your bread with the poor. Bring in the naked into your home, like you do in Lockridge. And then your light will shine like the morning. Thank you.
I love this fella. A little bit about our life. So out of that context of living in Lockridge, we started to pray. And thanks to my wife's leadership, she was like, what I feel God's stirring in me is that we actually need to look at buying a house, which if you think of me with a mortgage and not giggling yet, you don't know me well enough. That's funny in itself. And so we started looking, and within a month, Teresa had found a place that's 10 minutes to the train station, that is 10 minutes towards Centrelink, 10 minutes to the hospital, in an area that is industrial, commercial and residential. And so if you're just moving into a place, there's the kind of jobs that you can get without much English at all. And so we started praying and we found this place. And this is what our life looks like today. So you see down here, we're learning Kena and one of the families with us is learning English. So daily English lessons. Things like homework and board games, just sharing our home. It's not rocket science. It's just opening up your home and creating the kind of safe space where people don't have to be coerced into being like you and can just be themselves. And over here, and I should add, normally with helmets, I know there's a couple of you going, my mum, that's what she said as well. Just providing a safe place where people can get on their feet. If we go to the next slide. I want to tell, well, it says here I've got 9 minutes. If I've got 9 minutes, do I have 9? Is that? Okay. Yeah, don't say that to a charismatic. You'll get in trouble, Steve. This is Tate. We're not sure how old Tate is. Tate or Grandma Esper, who's on Teresa's back in the previous photo, Esper thinks Tate is at least 200 years old. I'm not sure. But Tate has this daily ministry of, she'll wake up in the morning and she'll walk over to you and she'll, Maraho, because she only speaks Kena Rwanda. Well, no, she doesn't. She speaks a bunch of languages. I'm just dumb enough not to speak any of them other than English. What I mean is she doesn't speak English. But she has this ministry of hugs and smiles that minister to me daily. This is Agnes in the middle. And in fact, are there any Baptists in the room? I see that hand, I see that hand. We won't be dancing during worship, don't worry about it. This is Noel Vos, who some of you might know. Noel Vos was friends with Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Noel was head of the World Baptist Alliance. Noel is now 92, and he comes to hang out at First Home Project and is a mentor for me, and he's a wonderful, godly, prayerful man. And this is us with Tate, but I want to spend a little moment with Agnes in the middle. Let me just paint, and the reason why I want to do this with our time is so you get a sense of how much dignity and like how incredible these people are. Agnes was told by her dad when she was 11 years old that next year she would not be going to school because she needs to milk the goats. So Agnes, for the rest of the year, would on her way to school pick mushrooms and put them in her bag. As she picked mushrooms and put them in the bag, then she'd sneak away after she'd finished all her chores really early on a Saturday morning, go down to local markets and sell them. By the end of the year, Agnes had enough money to pay for her schooling in neighbouring Rwanda, ran away from home, found her uncle's home in Rwanda and put herself through school. Refugees don't need a handout. They just need a hand up. They just need a fair go. They just need a level playing ground. They just need this kind of environment. Next slide. Like every Australian kid, Sopho was learning to use chopsticks. This is in fact the first time Sopho was using chopsticks, and he's a master now. He's got it down pat. A little bit about, so is he not the cutest kid in the world? My goodness. Do you know today as we sit here, there is 1,138 children just as precious to Jesus as little Sopho, who are sitting in detention centres offshore, indefinitely. A little bit about Sopho. Sopho was walking with Teresa and Agnes down to the chemist, and they arrived at the chemist. Agnes is getting her script filled, and these are stories I have permission to tell from Agnes. And Sopho was playing the which hand is the coin in game, only he doesn't have the coin, so it's the eternal which hand is the coin in game. It's like hours of fun. And he's like, no, 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 no. And this old fella in the chemist walks up to Sopho and says to him, "What's your name, young man?" And he goes, "Sophoni, Zephoniah." And he says, "And where are you from?" And Sopho, his family Congolese, grown up his whole life in a refugee camp. Agnes actually lost one of her children in the Great War of Africa, who was the same age as Sopho. Agnes doesn't need a saviour, certainly not a white one like me. She has one, and she loves him dearly. And I am so thankful that with fear and trembling, my transformation is being worked out as I open up my life to the joy of what it is to be faithful to the grace that has saved me, and the joy what it is to live that grace. And what Agnes teaches me is phenomenal. And so Sopho, being Congolese, growing up in Rwanda, in response to the question, "Where are you from?" in a loud voice, loud enough so everybody in the chemist could hear, says, "I am from China!" These are some of the wonderful people I get to live with. And with our remaining time, what I want to share is a little bit about how this came about, because I think it speaks of the alternative. I know we're very quick to pray for those in government. And I know Steve has said that this isn't political. And yet the Apostle Paul chose a political word to talk about God's people. He chose a term that was used for those men in an elite society where they would decide for the democratic purposes for the rest of the city. And he uses this Greek term ecclesia, and he applies it to children and women and slaves and frees and Jews and Greeks and this new politic. Those of us who had to go through degrees where we had to study ancient philosophy will know. As Plato would put it, politic in its most basic sense is about how we organise a society. And the early Christians were convinced that the love we see at Calvary, the saving love we see at Calvary, and the power that rose Jesus from the grave is the organising power of their lives. That it's that grace. So if I have a challenge, and Tim was talking about a challenge before, the only challenge I've got is grace. It's all I've got. No, seriously, it's all I've got. And so what I want to do is I want to show the video of how we brought the money together for First Home Project, and maybe in the question time, because I'm not going to have time to tell the rest of the story, but gee, it's phenomenal. Another time. Keep them hungry. Is that right, Pastor Steve? To get a sense of when the church is the church, we give the world permission to know that there are alternatives. The reason why Get Up approached us in its last week of the elections, when they had, with the then Prime Minister, question time, they choose a group of Christians, and all we were doing was seeking to be faithful. seeking to live the love that God has showed us at Calvary. That's all. All my good stuff is, I just rip it off Jesus. It's like, you can do it too. Like it's, and if someone as broken and problematic as me can be involved in this stuff, is that not good news for all of us? So we got rejected by 14 banks, even though it was a residential property. And we put together this little video, which we'll play now. Thanks.
You ready to go, comrade? Yeah. Jarrod and Teresa, I admire because they're two young people who've got the ideal that they should put other people first.
Like many Aussies our age, we want to buy our first home.
Maybe a bit different to other people's first homes, our first home will be their first home too.
Jarrod and Teresa are trying to do something that I dearly would love to do, and that is to not only wish that they could provide shelter for people at risk, but they actually intend to do it. But the intention is a bit on the rocks because they need people to back them up.
It's important that we welcome the new Aussies and give them a fair go.
Extraordinary young couple whose real commitment is to make love practical. They've done that in ways of caring for Indigenous, being involved with asylum seekers and refugees. And I am a great admirer of what they do now. They're at a crossroads.
So our little family are feeling moved to come alongside the newest Australians so they can have a fair go too.
So we put in an offer for our first home, not just for us, but for new Aussie families too. It was accepted by the owner, yet lenders are finding it hard to understand what we're about and aren't prepared to give us a loan.
And that's why we're making this video, to appeal to people to actually invest in this magnificent act of self-sacrifice.
They don't see this as a home. Despite the fact that it's zone residential, it has enough bedrooms, bathrooms and kitchens for 3 families, which is perfect for us and our new friends. So in short, the banks have said we don't get it and we thought it was all over.
Then a friend gave us $5,000 and said, we can't do what you're doing, but we can give.
Then a mate rings up, says we've got about $40,000 that they've been saving for their own home. Says we love you, we love what you're trying to do for others, and we want to support you by lending this money to you.
Then someone else said, we have 55 grand that we're prepared to lend you to help your dream become a reality.
Then we realised the banks might not get it, but maybe you do. Maybe you want to be our bank. So we met with a lawyer and accountant who said, look, it's different, but it's possible. So we're asking, do you too want to be our bank?
We need to come up with 600,000 by either loan or donation by Sunday the 12th of August.
We've never asked or taken donations before.
Jarrod and Teresa's philosophy is pretty simple. It is love is practical. Nothing more practical than what they're trying to do. Practical in the sense that it's a hand up, not just a handout. Practical in the sense that it's about education and belonging and hospitality and empowerment. So let's help them with their philosophy and be practical too.
So this is the place, and with a hand from you, we can give a hand up to the newest Australians.
It's, because it's backed up by 2 honest blokes like you and me, well, we're giving a guarantee, a personal, moral guarantee, aren't we?
Absolutely.
That this is, I was going to say this is a good bet, but I mean, I'm paying respect to your...
Costello and a Maguire, you can trust that.
Yes! The double.
They'll cut and edit.
Yeah, they can cut it out, yeah.
What you missed is, as we were laughing over that awkward pause, Tim goes, they'll cut and edit. Armed only with that video, with the kind of kingdom imagination, the kind of imagination that grace is not just pardon, but it's actually empowerment to live the love that has saved us at Calvary. Even broken, messed up people like me can be a part of things that make people reimagine our world. New Testament calls it being the church. being a people that live the love that has saved us. And my challenge to you tonight is simply to consider that grace isn't only for us spiritually, but it can be a real alternative for our world. In these darkest of situations, grace can be an alternative for our world. The kind of grace where we see mushrooms and see education. Where we see coins. And little Selfo, when he was asked, because the old man actually gave him a coin after his funny answer, and he was asked, what are you going to do with the coins? And Selfo said, I'm going to buy many, many balloons. And we need the kind of imaginations that sees coins and sees many balloons, that sees drug labs and sees places of beautiful welcome, that sees sinners like me and sees a child of God. And my simple prayer tonight is that something around this situation, that you will see something of God's grace and how it's good news to our world. Thanks.
As you're finishing off those emails through of questions, we're about to jump into a Q&A time with both Greg and Jarrod, but I want to get practical for a second and let you know of a couple of things that you can get involved in straight out of tonight. We want tonight to be not only informative, not only encouraging, but also empowering, that you can walk out with some ways to get involved. The first way that I wanted to mention is the Ride for Refugees, which is kicking off in May. It's an awareness raiser and a fundraiser for refugees in the community and for projects happening here in Sydney and across in a couple of different countries around the world as well. There's some flyers and information outside. Basically, if you like bike riding, you can choose to do it for half a K with your kids, or you can go the full 100K with Steve Chong, whichever you'd prefer. He's nodding. Whichever you prefer, you can get involved. There's some flyers outside as well. As well as that, Jarrod spoke about the First Home project and showed us that video. We're going to hear a little bit more about ways to get involved in that. There's also a great opportunity coming up through Welcome to Australia and World Vision called Welcome to My Place. It's an opportunity for us to be practically hospitable to people who are in need. If you're the kind of person who loves to grab dinner with friends, to open up your home or even your church to people, then Welcome to My Place gives you the opportunity to do that with people who are in the community who are refugees or asylum seekers and people who need those networks of support. There's a couple of training days happening in Sydney, one in the western suburbs and one at City Light Balmain. If you want to find more about that, go to welcometomyplace.org.au. As well as that, there's so many different ways you can get involved. There's the Simple Love project as well, and we're pretty lucky to have a couple of the people from Simple Love in the room. Do you guys want to chuck up your hand? Marty, Lucy, fantastic. Simple Love project is an amazing way for you to get involved really simply. It's basically this, that refugees in the community who are living on small amounts of money and who aren't able to find work or aren't allowed to find work need food. And the Asylum Seeker Centre and House of Welcome provide those groceries to them. And they run short of groceries each month. We are great. If the church is good at one thing, it is good at a food drive, right? We can get a can of food from the back of the cupboard and we can give it to a cause, right? Simple Love allows us to do that. If you want to get involved, head to Simple Love on Facebook and check it out from there.